It is 8:30 straight up, and welcome to Introduction to Criminal Law. And this is term one, and my name is Richard Wright, or some call me Professor Richard Wright. Let me know that you can hear me by just typing in the chat box, yes, you can hear me, and I will, because I need to make sure that you're hearing me. Are you hearing me? Okay, good. So that means you heard the music. That means you can hear me. Well, at any rate, this is going to be a quick experience for you guys. I don't know if you've had 5.5 week classes or not, but this class starts this week, and it actually ends May 8th. It is a quick trip. And so my first admonishment to each of you is to remind you to keep up with the assignments, because midpoint is just 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away. You'll be at midpoint pretty much. So you can't afford to fall behind. So we're going to talk about a little bit. I'm going to try to keep it to an hour, but I probably will go a little bit over. And the only reason is because usually I use this for open house, but I'm going to use this to provide you with details about expectations for this quarter, T1. So let's go ahead and let's just get started. I'm going to share my screen. And at the end of this session, I'm going to tell you some things about me that you will know. So let me see if I can move this information. Well, no, I don't want to make it too big. Let me grab it and move it. Just for now, we'll put it over here. Then we'll move it. Okay, first of all, you can see instructor information about me when you first open up your course page, your home page, which has a lot of valuable information on it. First, it tells you my name, and it tells you my phone number. And then it gives you the rules for communication with me. And if you read it very carefully, and I must say this over and over and over to students, that it means what it says. It is not a typo. It is not sarcasm. It's very real. I said you can feel free to call me, which you have the phone number, text me, which you have the phone number, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. Now, students will try to figure out what that means. You figure it out, how many hours in the day, and then operate from that, on that basis. It is not 2 in the morning. It's not 1 in the morning. It's not 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning. It means what it says. So kind of operated like most super Walmarts operate, okay? So that's a clue. So anyway, I am serious about that. Now, I do warn you that when you do email me, or rather text me, please make sure that you identify who you are and what class you're in, because I teach other classes other than this. Otherwise, I might not know that information. And I respond back pretty fast. You'll be surprised. Then I want to give you some expectations. First reminder, and I put it in bold print, that you're required to conduct research for all papers. That means the sole source of your papers cannot be the textbook. You'll lose 2 points for failure to conduct research. All written assignments, I said all, not some, all written assignments should be in APA format. That means citations in the body and references at the end. And it also means having a cover sheet. There it is right there. You lose 1 point for not providing a cover sheet as well, but that's part of the APA requirements. Very important. Now, sometimes students have trouble with APA. We have some resources that I'm going to point out to you that are available to help you. And then these are some various sources and links that you can take a look at on your own to help you with your writing and your research and things of that nature. So there are some really good resources located in these places that will help you with APA. Plus, there's some other stuff that I will go over in a minute. This is about tutoring. If you need tutoring, do not hesitate to get in it. If I see that there are problems with APA, I will send you to tutoring. You will see receive a message from me, because there's a place where I can go to. You see it on the left side. It says tutoring, and I can click on if I see a pattern that's taking place. And remember, this is only 5.5 weeks, so it's going to be pretty fast. And you have various methods for how you can get tutoring. And then the question is, do you need tutoring? If you're a good student, yeah, you might need tutoring sometimes to help you nail down some things. And then there's some great articles that I have. If you click on the links, you can download the documents about textbooks, going beyond the textbook. Remember, I already talked about that. Analytical tips, because there's a lot of critical thinking that we're going to be looking at. Remember that you should always run your papers through Grammarly. Grammarly is a free item that you get, and you can find that in resources as well. The resource tab in your class is right there next to the calendar, and you can click on that and you can see how to set up your Grammarly account. But you want to make sure you check your Grammarly specifically for plagiarism, because if you don't have enough critical thinking in your papers, you're going to get hit with percentages that are very high. And usually high percentages are anything above 25%. I'm very liberal with that. A lot of professors go to the average, which I say is 10 to 15%, but we want to get you to the point of having 10% to 15% from sources that you discover from your research, and the other 85 to 90% we want to be your own critical thinking about the actual paper that you're doing. Then tells you about referencing, which we'll discuss APA as well, and then how to write an annotated bibliography, which we won't have to be dealing with too much in this class. And then critical thinking, if you copy this and then put it in your browser, it'll give you a quick video about critical thinking and will help you to write good papers. Rubrics for written assignments are located in each written assignment. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. You will see those rubrics because I will be relying on them heavily for your grading. And then your discussion posts also, they have rubrics, and you're going to find that I'm pretty liberal when it comes to discussion posts. The key thing that I'm going to be looking for is your dealing with the issues, and also I'm going to look at the timeliness of it and the content in itself. If it's a very brief discussion post, you won't get all of the points. All right, so we're going to talk more about that in a minute. And then a reminder that your live lectures take place every Tuesday, beginning tonight at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard, and we'll roughly run 9:30. Again, like I said, I may go a little bit over. And then they will take place in weeks 1, which is this week, next week, week 3, 4, and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, they'll take place at the same time. Notice this, when you get to week 6, the lecture will take place Friday, May 4th. You see the capital letters must, attend the live lecture or listen to the archive. It is probably more beneficial for you to listen to the live lecture and come in and be able to participate than to the archive. Each week there will be a key word that I'll give at some point. And I'm not going to say whether it's in the beginning, in the middle, or in the end. But I'm going to be looking for that key word for each student in order to give you a grade. Now, those of you who are in live lecture will automatically know what the key word is, and then you'll be able to just type it in. But I'm going to be looking for the key word to give you your points. You'll be required to provide me the key word. If you don't attend the live lecture, I will be keeping a record of attendance. Now, let me say this. Your live lecture viewing and or comments are due the same as assignments are due. That means that this live lecture today, you have to do it by midnight of Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay? Then I will have recordings, which is recordings. There aren't any now because this is the first lecture. So I will be recording this lecture and then sending out the archive. So those of you who are live will also receive that live lecture. Okay? So now let's move this back over here. So now, again, I talked about APA assistance. There is this. You can click on more, and this will stay pretty much in for most of the quarter. And it gives this link here, guides for APA. And there's a video in there about APA and all kinds of valuable resources to help you how to format your papers so that you'll satisfy the APA requirements. You'll see that's part of your grade. Then there's one on the writing process, which you pretty much will see as well. I talked about the writing guide, which is over here. And then Grammarly, I'm commenting about that. And then if you need to use the writing lab, be aware if you use the writing lab, it's a 48-hour turnaround to make corrections and then submit them to the instructor, and then tutoring at any point. Okay. And then here, this is just a little thing that shows how inbox grading is done, so you'll have a chance to look at that video yourself. All right. Now, let's look at the announcements. First thing I want to start out with is the welcome announcement. This announcement will stay in pretty much during the whole quarter. You should check all of these items on a regular basis. Make sure, especially the calendar. I cannot stress how important checking the calendar is. You can print the calendar for the whole quarter. I'm going to show you where it is. There are 2 places you can get it, but make sure that you do that. It's a whole month at a glance. Remember, this is going to be a pretty fast one, so the calendar is not very long. There's a section for general course questions. This is located under the discussion section, right under the student lounge area, where I hope you've posted some information in student lounge and replied to other students, so that we will get to know each other better. The resources tab, I already pointed that out to you. And then the report tab will give you access to the grade book, so you'll be able to see your grades. Then there is some valuable information. I already talked about these. Now, again, I repeat about our live lectures, and I already told you about that in the earlier section over on the right, and then what we're going to be doing during the lectures. All right? So that's the live portion. Now, announcement. Now, I want to also point out to you, make sure that you become familiar with the rubric. Very important, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. So now let's look at what the expectation. Each week, you will see a minimum of one announcement. So this week 1, Crime and the Constitution, is going to be presented to you, reading chapter 1 and 2 of the book, A Brief Introduction to Criminal Law, which you have access to. It's a very good book. This is the first time I'm using it, because this is the first time I've taught the 5.5 week. I've taught the 11-week course many times. But this is a very good book. I really like it, and I think it's geared very well for undergrad students to help introduce you to criminal law. And then there are several activities that you want to take time to go through. Types of law. What is a crime? The Fourth Amendment, probable cause. There are key terms. You'll discover in this course that terminology is very important, as you'll discover in law, and I was a criminal defense lawyer for many, many years. Again, I'll talk about that at the end. And terminology is critical, a lot of terms. And then there's practice sessions for elements of an offense, classification of crime, and then a practice quiz. Now, don't forsake the practice quiz, because there are two, they use the term quiz, but they're actually exams. Week 3 has a quiz, as well as week, I think it's 5 or 6. I think it's 6 that has the quiz. But anyway, these are equivalent to midterms and finals for 5.5 weeks. And so, again, this reminds you, again, about the lecture. Somebody asked me what the link is. I said, it's right there. It's several places. This is one of the places that you can find a link to the live lecture. And then be sure that you complete your discussion assignment. The police dogs and warrantless searches this week is due tonight by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then the reply post to the same topic is due by this Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, except when we get to the last week, but we won't talk about that right now. We'll talk about that as it comes up. But again, you can look at the calendar and you can see. Finally, complete the written assignment, elements of law, and the quiz. Now, the quiz then that I'm talking about here is not the actual quiz, but the practice quiz. The quiz itself is in week 3. All written assignments are due Sunday, and that was I was telling you about. Your keyword is due by Sunday for the video, the recording. Now, I encourage you to look at that as early as possible and then submit it. You'll be completing a course project. Oh, no, you won't. No, you won't. I got to take that out because that's not in this course. That's from the old course. And when I copied it, I left it in there. Disregard that. There is not a course project, and there not is a written quiz. In the old course, every week there were one, but I got to make sure I take that out. I thought I had, so you can disregard that. So the actual assignments that are given are in the, you'll see in a few minutes, and I'm going to correct this announcement as soon as I finish. And then remind you about what we call an open house, which is actually tonight, our first lecture, and lasts at least an hour, maybe longer. And then you'll see my motto: starting strong, finish strong, but adversity is the springboard to success. You will see that every week, and you'll understand later why I say that. So I'm going to clean up that week 1 announcement for you guys, because I'm surprised no one said anything yet. But anyway, that's it. So now let's take a look at the course calendar. Okay, now with this course calendar, I want to take out this J280 stuff. Okay, there we go. And then it tells you actually what your assignments are. Your reading assignment is given here, and I talked to you about that earlier. And then your initial post, reply post. This is your written assignment. You'll see the rubric and module for the details. Elements of criminal law. That's the written assignment for this week. So I got to go back and fix that up. But that's going to be the written assignment that is due on the 8th, which is this coming Sunday. And then you'll see this little check box in here, and it tells you that also when it's due. You'll see something when you get to the assignments that will help you to stay on track as well. I'll show you that in a minute. Again, the whole calendar is already laid out for you, all the way to the end. Remember, I told you that the last day of class is the 8th, and I'm going to add that language in there to remind you that it's the last day of class, the 8th. That's when the term ends. So I'm going to add that to the calendar as well, so you can have that, so you'll be reminded about that date. Okay, now before we go into the module, I want to go to the syllabus. The syllabus tells you my name, my number again, and reminds you about the rules that I showed you earlier. It gives you my email address. Now, they got a 2 in there, but if you send it to me without the 2, I'll also get it. But that's for the course email, which you'll be able to send me. But my email outside of the course, even if you put a 2 in there, they say I'll still get it. So make sure that you use that to reach me. Course description, I already talked about what the text is. And then term 1 is 5.5 weeks. Weeks 1 to 5, it says that all exams and quizzes are due Sunday. I told you that. And then the final week, the last day of class, which I told you was the 8th of May. You don't have to worry about term 2 because that doesn't pertain to this class. Now, weekly discussion posts. These are the guidelines I'll be looking for to make sure that they're thoughtful and detailed, not yes, no, I agree, or short answers, and should be posted by the dates that I've already given to you, which is Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time for initial posts, and Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time for reply posts. And then you should try to reply to as many posts as you can during the week. It helps the class. You won't get any additional points, but make sure that you've done that. So I've given the guidelines for the discussion posts. Again, it tells you what I told you. Tuesday by midnight or 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's your initial post. Saturday, and that goes for also weeks 2 through 5 as well. Initial post Tuesday and reply post Saturday, except Friday, the 8th of May, initial post and reply post will be due that same day. Very interesting things I'm learning from teaching this class, term 5.5. Okay. Talks about the fact that to ensure the consistency and precision for students and instructors, we've chosen APA as the standard documentation and citation style. And there's information, as I said, under the resources tab about it, as well as there's library resources. And then I showed you some things earlier in the course itself. So the course will consist of readings and discussion posts, practice activities. Now, some students say, oh, practice, I'm not getting graded. Well, guess what? If you don't do the practice activities, you might have some problems understanding the module itself. These are items to help you. Each module contains various types of practice activities to prepare you for the graded quizzes. And that's what I was telling you about a few minutes ago. The fact of the matter is you want to be prepared for those graded quizzes. Your written assignments can take many forms, and you will see those based upon the patterns that are given each written assignment, and you will see the due date up there, as well as the rubric, which tells you what the content is that I'll be looking for. And then I told you this course has 2 graded quizzes. And the first quiz masters the content of the first 3 modules. The second quiz is dealing with the last 3 modules. So as I said, it's like a final and a midterm. And then I've already talked about live lectures and the requirements for that. Now, here's the deal. Discussion posts constitute 18% of your grade, or 90 points, which means you get 15 each week. That's what it comes out to be. You want to maximize that. Written assignments, 200 points, or 40% of your grade. So it's very important that you do the written assignments. The quizzes, again, there are 2, then 180 points, or 36%. So the live classrooms are only 6%, but you don't want to lose those points, because those points will help to effectuate how you perform in the written assignments and the quizzes and discussion posts, because you'll deal with the assignments themselves, for a total of 500 points, or the 100% is the grade. Now, here's the deal. I'm going to say to you up front, my goal is to get you up here, A and B. B minus at the lowest. Never contact me to ask me, what do I need to do to get a C in your class? I will not answer you, because I refuse to answer that question, because I'm not going to tell you how to be mediocre. I'm not going to tell you how to be average. I want you to be highly successful. And if it was me, using a business term, return on investment, or ROI, you're paying good money to go to school. You should maximize your investment, or get a good return on your investment, which is ROI, and your goal is to be up here in 100 to 93 percentile. I've had students say, man, I just missed it. I got a 92. I said, well, you did pretty good. But the point of the matter is shoot for always perfection. Make that a habit in life, I think, in anything that you do, and you will go far, and you will be highly, highly successful. And I personally love my students. I love helping them. That's why I have that 25th hour rule. No other professor does that. But I mean what I say. There are students that will tell you that have had me in other courses. They'll say, I'm amazed at how quickly he responds. I've never had, well, I did. I had one student that said that she could never reach me. And the dean knew that wasn't true. And so anyway, the point of the matter is that no, I'm very accessible to students. I give the cell phone number to students so they can feel free to reach me again. You'll be surprised sometimes I'm late grading papers, okay? So we don't want to get in this section here, okay? We want to stay up here, all right? And then this tells you what I will be doing: conducting lectures, responding to messages within 48 hours. Trust me, I don't like even 48 hours. I don't even like inbox. I check my emails. I have them on my phone where I check my messages, but I also log into my classes several times during the day, usually in the morning early, in the afternoon, and then late at night. I do them as well. I've had students to send messages late at night and then get a response back, and they said, oh, wow, I was just getting ready to add to it, but I'm responding back pretty fast. And then sometimes you will be surprised. You will text me, and I will see that there's a serious issue, and I will call you to talk to you, because sometimes the best way to resolve an issue is to talk. So now I want to take a few minutes to talk about our transferable skills. This college has identified that there are certain skills that employers are looking for, and these are called transferable skills. And these you will be dealing with throughout your assignments. Sometimes students ask why assignment, such a project or something that they have to do, because we want to sharpen your transferable skills for employment, because that's what employers tell us that they're looking for, individuals in those areas. So they are the following. Communication, so important to communicate, especially in criminal justice. You will be communicating with people from all backgrounds, different languages, and you'll have different techniques, but you have to be a good communicator. Critical thinking, I basically tell you critical thinking involves sharing your analytical ideas about the information of the assignment itself. Now, we don't want copy and pasters. We want people who are able to think on their feet, be able to share ideas, critique the material, break it down. And I told you there's a video that helps you with critical thinking. My favorite of the transferable skills is critical thinking. I'm a natural critical thinker because I am a retired lawyer. Law school, through the Socratic method, taught us how to be critical thinkers. And so I'm a natural critical thinker. So you want to express that in your written assignments very, very well. Digital fluency. When I came up, when I through college and law school, there was no such thing. But now everything is digital. Books are digital. The classes, the LMSs, the teaching online. I came to Rasmussen in 2011, and I was teaching residentially, and then they switched over the criminal justice program to online, and I had to learn the different modes of teaching in the classes. We started with Angel, and now we're at Blackboard, which I love Blackboard. And so I'm fluent with this. I have a cell phone. I have an Android pad. I'm an Android person. You know, I have this computer, and I have my own. And I know how to use all sorts of communication using digital. So I'm a very fluent person when it comes to digital fluency, and that's what employers are going to be looking for, okay? Being able to use the various resources that are out there, PowerPoints, Office, Word, Excel, and many others. And then because of the fact that you're going to be in contact with people from various backgrounds, you're going to deal with the issue of diversity and teamwork, especially diversity. You're going to work with people and you're going to meet people. You have people in your classroom that are from different parts of the country. Since we're online, you got people in Minnesota, you got people in Florida, you got people all over. I had people in Alaska, people on the East Coast, and, you know, all of those various places. So you're going to find that you need to be able to communicate and deal with those people. And you who are in criminal justice will deal with people from very diverse backgrounds. Our country is a melting pot. It is made up of people from all over the world. And so you're going to find yourself in the situation where you need to be able to communicate with people from all backgrounds. Then you're going to be working as teams. Teamwork is critical. Teamwork is very important. And you're going to work in teams, especially in criminal justice. You're going to have forensic people. You're going to have detectives. You're going to have law enforcement officers on the streets. You're going to deal with corrections, probation officers, parole officers, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and you're going to deal with a whole myriad of people, and they're going to all be part of your team. So we teach you to focus on that while you're in school. This word next, ethics, it is critical. It is so important that you develop the ability to operate on a level that is very ethical, truthful, honest, sincere, You need to be able to make sure that you obey the processes of your organization, the rules, or operate responsible in your profession. Right now, law enforcement especially is in desperate need of ethical criminal justice professionals in all areas. I'm talking about in forensics. I'm talking about in the streets as police officers, investigators, detectives, as the medical examiners, all of them. We're under attack severely. We got webcams that will impeach you if you or catch you if you write your report that's inconsistent with what really happened, and you can end up finding yourself going to jail or losing your pension or your job and things like that. So we encourage ethical practices. We operate on that basis. When you take your exams and quizzes, you shouldn't have books trying to get the answers while you're doing it. That's why we have them timed, so we can make sure that you understand that. Cheating is not good for you. It's not good for anybody. Cheaters end up eventually getting caught, I guarantee you. Same thing, we always tell, there's no such thing as a smart criminal, because the definition of a criminal is one who's been caught committing a crime. I mean, they weren't that smart. And then finally, the information literacy. You need to be able to find stuff. You need to be able to research. You need to be able to utilize the libraries and resources. When I was coming up, we went to the library. We used books. Well, you still use them, but there's a lot of resources now that you use. Now, for example, I encourage students, and you'll see this in your rubric, do not, I repeat, do not, I repeat it again, do not use Wikipedia as a resource ever in any of my classes, because you will lose points, and you'll see that in the rubric itself. Wikipedia is unreliable, and also we want you to use, cases. I want you to use things that are credible, like I like law journals, but make sure they're credible law journals. Make sure that they're from schools that are credible schools. And our Library and Learning Center has a lot of resources, articles, videos. Sometimes it is not very good to use the news media, though there are some points you can to make your point, but the news media, you got to remember, writes and edits and presents their material on a very biased basis. And then if you use a study, for example, about crime, for example, or guns or anything, and it's produced by, for example, the NRA, if it's dealing with guns, then you already know the direction it's going to go. If it's the organization that's against guns, you're going to know. If it's on milk, and it's a dairy farmer. So you got to understand, and you be able to use credible resources. And you'll have a chance to deal with those issues throughout this class and other classes. I won't talk about the attendance policy. The late assignment policy, I will. Up to 7 days after work, after assignments are required, you can lose 10% each day. Up to, it says, up to 3 days. But the bottom line is that, let's say, for example, if you have 100 on the day 1, day 2, you got 90, day 3, you got 80, then, I'm sorry, day 3, you got 70, day 4, you got 60. So you see what I'm talking about. Now, and it says you may be asked to complete an alternate assignment. No, don't even, that's a standard thing, but that's up to the professor. I don't do that. I don't have time to do that. My understanding is that students should complete the work that they have already. I do accept late assignments, but you will lose points. Online discussions end at the end of the week. And if they are submitted, they will be accepted So it says not accepted, but it is, but there'll be no grade given. So it's like the same thing. So it's important. So so the discussion this week is due by Saturday. If you post it Sunday, I'll give you a break if it's a reply post and take a point. But if it's done that Monday after, all deals are off. No points for that. Now, I do have the discretion to waive late penalties in the case of extenuating circumstances. I am very liberal with that, but students have to let me know. And if I see you with a pattern, I'm going to not allow it or grant it. But, you know, and it's got to be legitimate. And most of the time, what I encourage students that when they have those, don't email me, call me, pick up the phone and dial. I've only had one student who ever said to me when I invited them to call me, they said, I get nervous when I talk on the phone. So guess where they worked? At a call center. Yeah, I would laugh out loud on that one. That's kind of hilarious. I was wondering how they did that. So at any rate, the point of the matter is that I would be diligent in terms of getting the information out. I wouldn't say, oh, I sent an email to you, did you get it? No, you know, those kind of things. And then we want to make sure that you do those. So anyway, that's the late assignment policy. And then the academic integrity, you know, we already kind of talked about that. All right. So now it's 9:12 already, and I want to go through this module. Okay, and I want to, again, here we go with the assignments. These are the actual assignments for the week. I already talked to you about the discussion posts, and here's a written assignment. And I'm not going to go over to explain it to you, but you need to make sure you read these very carefully and satisfy all of the requirement. And it says it gives you how long it should be, not counting the reference page, and to deal with these issues. Tells you about APA. Then it tells you also how to get help if you need help. And I already talked about these already, but you'll see that built within to remind you. Now, and then there's the live lecture, which takes place today. Now, let me show you something. When you click on your assignment and you open it up, it's going to tell you your due date in there for every one. So you'll also have it right there. Then it tells you your possible points. Then it tells you if you want to view the rubric. I'll open it up and show you. There it is. Let me move this up a little bit here, Monique, because move you up here. There we go. So it tells you how you're going to get your points. In this first assignment, you'll get 10 points for doing what this says, which represents 1/4. Then this section, you get 10 points, which represents another 1/4. This one. So you got 75% of your grade. So you get a 75 just by doing this. But that's not good. That's not good, a 75. Whoops. So then, okay. So basically, yeah, 75% or either 30 points out of 40. So now you got your 10. Oh, I keep hitting that. Okay, now let's go down here and let's look at the last 10 points. You can lose 25 points by not having this information and how your paper is written. Grammatical. Remember I told you, meets the minimum 3-page requirement. Citations and references. Tells you that. And then I also said no Wikipedia or other generic resources for a total of 40 points. So you want to, so you don't have any excuse, so that when I grade it, you'll say, I don't understand how you did that. Well, it's there. It's right there in the assignment, and I took time to make sure that I had that there. And it helps you to be focused there. It's all right there. And then this rubric is the same way you're going to see my comments once you actually complete that assignment. And that's how that's going to work, okay? So now you know about the rubric. And each assignment has this information at the top and the rubric embedded in it already. It is there for you to help you so that there be no confusion about what happened and why. And you already know that this doesn't include, the rubric doesn't include late points, late assignments, but you already know the rule on that. So we don't put that in the rubric, all right? So now let's go back and let's take a look at the actual content. Okay, let's go back. The course content is something that you want to look at every week because it tells you, starts out with your objectives, tells you too about your assignments. These are the various sections: types of law, what is crime, the Fourth Amendment, key terms for practice, elements of an offense, elements of crime, then a practice quiz. So that's a practice quiz here. But your graded assignments are going to be discussion votes, your written assignment, and then, of course, your points for participating in the live lecture, okay? So let's go down here. Types of law. I'm not going to go through this, but you're going to take time, and you're going to read this and explain things. And actually, to tell you the truth, this is information that's also in your textbook as well. The chapters are not very long in this book, and also, you'll see at the end, then it tells types of law, and you know, you want to then go next in this same section. Tells you there's more in that section, and it tells some more, and it breaks it down. A world without laws, types of laws. Then it goes next, it talks about that, and the whole thing, it gives you great information to help you out, okay? So that's how you learn about that. These are all kind of tools that are embedded in it. This is one of the most well thought out processes. The people who designed this, I thought it was excellent. Then what is a crime? You'll find that in your textbook, but it breaks down the classifications, the definitions, some examples, and then you get down to jail versus prison. What's the difference between the two of them, so that you understand they're not the same. They both are places where people are incarcerated, but they're serving different purposes. You'll go over that. The Fourth Amendment, understanding the search and seizure and the right to have probable cause be determined. And you'll read this information and study, and you'll find out a lot of things that help you. The Fourth Amendment, you can download what the Fourth Amendment says, and this is what it is. And you'll become familiar with that, and we'll be talking about that as well. Plain view exception. There are exceptions. And you know, the term plain view says plain view. It means what it says. When something's in plain view, it means you can see it. I walk into my house, somebody's house, and drugs, and I don't have a search warrant, and I see drugs on the table, like cocaine or something that appears to be, that's plain view. Consent is what it says, and it gives some examples of consent, certain forms of consent, and things of that nature. Automobile exceptions, searches that are incident to a lawful arrest, again, and then reference of cases, some leading cases and some statutes that also are helpful. Now, there's the key terms here. It says, look, this activity will help you prepare for your quizzes. So don't skip it. So what you do is you click on this little thing, not the chevron, but you open the key terms by doing this, and then launch it, because sometimes it'll be blocked. And it gives flashcards, pick a letter, different ways people learn different ways. So let's say we use flashcards, and then you have to make sure that you enable your Adobe Flash to be able to see them. And if you have problems with that, okay, here we go. You have to contact personal support. Okay, and then it says run Flash at this time. Should open it up. Click to enable Adobe Flash Player. Of course, I'm recording and it's not doing it, but you know what I'm talking about. You want to go ahead and take a look at them. Okay, then it tells you what to do to get it straightened out. So anyway, that's a whole nother issue there. So anyway, that tells you about how to find that information there. Again, if you have problems, contact personal support. They will be able to help you, because those key terms are very, 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 very important. So it says don't skip it. Then elements of an offense, and it tells you what you need to do, and it says if you click on this, it'll open up in another window. Again, you gotta, it says pop-ups blocked. I must have, do I have a blocker on there? Okay, always allow pop-ups, there we go. So then once I do that, then I should be able to, yeah, there we go. And then it opens up for practice. So that's what you want to do, so you can be able to see. Again, I'm not taking the time to go over all of these. Yourself can spend the time, but it's very important you use that as a study tool. Now, I'm going to go back to key terms now. Since I did that, you might be able to see them now. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Yeah, this is I'm had add, allow. Okay, anyway, I haven't even had to deal with this, so you're going to make sure that if you run into a problem, you do contact personal support. All right, because that's who I call when I have a technical problem, and then they take me through. Oh yeah, and then they fix it. All right, let's go down here. Same thing, classification of crimes. Okay, there we go. And then it tells you to start the activities. So if you started the activities, classifications of crime, match the crime with the proper crime classification. Driving without seatbelts. Is that a misdemeanor? Is that a felony? Or is that an infraction? Here we go. Damage to property with a 30-day jail sentence. And then this one hooks up with that. And then you submit it, and then it's going to say yes, correct. So I'm showing you just how some of these things work, okay? Obviously, I'm not going to spend the time going over all of them, but I'm just trying to show you. And then, like I said again, I repeat, if you run into a problem. Then there's a practice quiz. Then this will basically help you to understand the practice quiz. Let me just show you. What are the codified misdemeanors and felonies known as? Criminal law, civil law, case law, administrative law. So, but because of the interest of time, let's see what it says. Am I right or wrong? Yep. See, so, and you actually learned this from your studies. So you begin to see the Fourth Amendment is an example of what type of law? Case law, constitutional law, administrative law, or civil law. Where does the Fourth Amendment come from? You know. So now you begin to see what I'm talking about. Burglary is an example of blank that subjects the offender to a potential prison sentence for 1 year or more. Is it an infraction? Is it a felony? Is it a citation that's involved? Or is it misdemeanor? Again, because I know the answer. Because I know. So the point of the matter is that, so you see the importance of doing those practices for quiz because they help you to understand. So now that's each week you're going to have something like that, and that's going to be very helpful to you. All right, so don't neglect them, please don't. You'll be wasting your good money because those resources were put in there for a good reason, and that is to help you to deal with the module. And remember, it's a short period of time. So now I'm going to stop sharing what the module is. And then I want to go and I want to share with you and I want to show you what the okay, hold on a second here. Okay. I want to show you an idea. I'm going to be sending you this. Each week you'll get it, and I'll send it to you later. These are the PowerPoints, actually outlines, that helps you to deal with each chapter. And I will send these to you after class. You will normally get them on Sunday nights, but I wanted to let you know what they were. And then basically, it gives you an outline of what's in the chapter. Crimes defined, classifications, introduction, and all this stuff you'll see, oh yeah, as you read through it, you'll say, oh yeah, I know these things. And then, like this one, for example, society's expectations in writing. Nulla pone sine lege. It means there's no crime without the law. There has to be a law in place that takes place. You'll see that in your reading when you go through it. Again, this helps you. Again, I'll be sending this to you. You'll learn about the Harambe Code, Hammurabi Code, natural law, common law, all these different things. And these are things that I will be, like I said again, these will help you. And I'm just kind of going through it, showing you what's in them. And there's about 20-something slides for each. Well, there's 19 for this one. Okay. So, and then there's one for chapter 2, crime and punishment and so forth. So I will be sending these to you as well. Okay. So now, any questions? You can type if there are any questions in the chat box. I'll answer them. And if none, then I'm going to conclude, taking a few minutes, and I want to share something with you at the end. Any questions about anything? Nothing? There's something I haven't done yet, but I will give it to you in a minute. But I want to see if you notice what's missing before I kind of conclude by telling you something about myself. Anything? Okay, well, open house. Open house. I'll be looking for open house. Now, let me tell you something about me. I am a person who ended up becoming a lawyer because when I was 7 years old, my dad was murdered in front of my face in the house by a guy that turned out to be my mother's live-in boyfriend, and he stabbed him in front of me and my 5 younger sisters in 1957. He did not go to jail. He proceeded to then beat my mom after that and stayed there with us. And my mom would call the police. He would go to jail. She'd go back and get him. So therefore, I was living in a house of domestic violence. So I was 7, and I was the oldest and only boy. Well, anyway, that went on all the way until 62, when we moved from from the west side of Chicago to Gary, Indiana. And then when we moved to Gary, Indiana, in a beautiful home, the beatings kind of stopped because an aunt came to stay with us for a while. But Memorial Day of 63, I forgot to tell you that Memorial Day of 57 is when my dad was killed. The man killed my mother, not in front of us, but he let her bleed to death. So therefore, there were 7 girls and me, who was just turning 13, and we had no parents. So we were brought back from Indiana to Illinois to live with an aunt. The aunt didn't want us to live there. We had all kinds of problems. And so as a result, we ended up having another aunt to take us. She had a house built and moved us all into that house. Well, that was about 64, and I was 14. And I would find out that the man who had been arrested for killing my mother would receive 10 years. 10 years. And that was going to be the sentence that he was going to receive under the law. 10 years. But it was brought to my attention quickly that 10 years really meant 5, because it would be day for a day good time. So then I would further be told that if he behaved, he would get 1.5 years cut off. Thus, he would serve 3.5 years, which he ultimately did. Well, by this time, I was very troubled about it. I started asking people what to do. They said this was bad, and there's nothing you can do about it. So finally, someone came forth, and they told me about these people called lawyers. And so I went to the library at that time, because there was no none of that technology. And I got a little book that I could read from our school library. I was in the 8th grade. And I got that book, and I read it from cover to cover in one night. And then everybody I met the day after that says, my name is Richard Wright, and I'm going to be a lawyer. And I would ultimately end up graduating and then end up going on to get a job in a big law firm, starting in their mailroom. I got married right away, and then kids came. And I ended up having a car. I would have to be at work at 8:30 in the morning. Then I'd get out at 4, and then I'd have to be in class at 4:30. And I had books at that time, guys, big books that I had to carry. I would take 3 to 4 classes every semester. And so anyway, I would get out of school at 10 o'clock at night, get back on the L train, where people would come through. The police would be chasing people. They would play three-card money, all kinds of issues. The conductors would sing out the stops. But I studied all the way to the end of the line where I got off, and sometimes I fell asleep. But I studied. So I was working in the mailroom, and the law firm, I had told all of them when I first got there that I was going to be a lawyer. And then I was doing well in school. I stayed on the dean's list, even with all the adversity I was facing. And I ended up getting promoted at the law firm to file clerk, and then law librarian, and then what they call a legal assistant, because they found out I knew how to do research. I taught myself how to do research. It wasn't required of my job, but I taught myself. And they made me what is today called a paralegal, because I was a legal assistant. So I was writing memos and briefs and helping the lawyers. In the meantime, I would graduate, leaving junior college and going to a four-year institution called Roosevelt University in downtown Chicago, and then would take classes at night continuously, and then on Saturdays. It took me 7 years to do that. And it wasn't easy, guys. It was tough. Money was tight. And like I said, I had two children. They're now 46 and 47 years old during that difficult time of my education. So those of you who have kids, I understand. I understand the difficulty and the circumstances that you face. So in the meantime, I ended up finding myself in a situation where I got to a point I knew I wanted to go to law school, took the LSAT, didn't do the best, but I still had my eyes on one school, and that was Northwestern University School of Law. It's an outstanding school in the United States. Supreme Court justices, John Paul Stevens came from there. They're governors. They're senators, U.S. senators, all kinds of people who were involved in serious activities. And I graduated from that school. But when I got there, I ran into some problems because I ran into financial problems. And I wanted to quit because the financial problems were overbearing, because while I was at the law school, I couldn't work in the first year. The first year was absolutely hard work. And so I found myself in a situation where I actually contemplated quitting, but there was a young lady, her name was Joyce Hughes, professor, who had come there, and she was my teacher, and she became a mentor, and she told me and took me in her office when I wanted to quit and said, that is not an option. And because of her, I buckled down even in the bad situations where I ran out of money. I mean, it was so bad, guys, that we ran out of money, that the electricity was off. So guess what? I studied by candlelight. My ex-wife, who was my first wife with those kids, she was studying. We studied. The point of the matter is that I didn't let things stop us. And we recognized the difficulties and adversities. So I went on, ended up graduating in 1978. While I was there, I met a gentleman who was a lawyer and would later on become a judge, who told me that if I wanted to learn about the legal system, because I told him criminal justice system, criminal law system, that it would be best I become a defense lawyer. And you think about that. After what I went through, I listened to him because I respected him, and that was my goal. I went back to the big law firm, became a lawyer for a couple of years, but I was unhappy doing corporate work. So I ended up leaving there in 1980 and starting to work with other lawyers, and ultimately find my own practice, primarily in criminal law. I would find myself doing radio. I had organized and set up a radio show that went on several radio stations called Know Your Rights. It was a play on words, WRIGHTS. The law office I had was spelled WRIGHTS, if you want to call, 974-4487. And I did all of that. And I still continued moving forward. And then I worked other areas of the law as well, but criminal law was my area. And then ultimately, I'd run into some personal problems and end up going through a divorce, got married a second time. And I ended up with my next marriage, where her mother was the mayor of a tough town in the south suburbs. And I ended up becoming the village attorney. And then because it was such a tough place to deal with, I told them I wanted to carry a gun. They said, no, you can't, only law enforcement officers. So I said, I'll do that part-time. So I did. I went to the academy, trained and took classes, and qualified to carry a firearm and became a part-time police officer, participating in raids and street arrests and all kinds of things that were involved. So I worked that. And I was also the village prosecutor, the general counsel. So I wore the hats of a paralegal, I wore the hat of a prosecutor, I wore the hats of law enforcement, police officer, and wore a hat as defense attorney. And I did all of those things for many years. Then I would find myself in 91 to 93, I'm kind of mixing up the dates here, going to seminary and became a minister, and ultimately would end up retiring at 2000 from full-time law. Taught special ed for a while. I worked with behavioral disorder kids, dealing with special needs kids. And then I ran a janitorial company for a while, for a company called Service Merchandise, which is now out of business. I was responsible for 26 stores and hiring the people. I did that as well. Then I began to do real estate closings for title companies, and I did all of that. Finally, in 2011, I found myself, someone told me that there was this school I had never heard of called Rasmussen, and they were looking for an adjunct or a part-time professor to teach business law. So I said, okay, I went and applied for the position, and I got the job. And immediately I let the dean know and was assigned to the Romeoville campus, which is where I'm assigned to today. And I ended up telling the dean, the academic dean, that I was a criminal justice person, and they then switched me over to criminal justice. And I taught residentially for several years, teaching all kinds of courses. One of my favorites was domestic violence, but because I knew how to teach that because of my personal experiences, and then also my law enforcement work as well. The bottom line is such, guys, that I found myself then getting a full-time position about 2014. I became what they call the State Program Coordinator of the School of Justice Studies for Illinois, and my responsibility were all 4 campuses in Illinois: Romeoville, Mokina, Rockford, and Aurora. And I covered the criminal justice programs for all of the students that were in that. And then finally in 2015 or 16, they changed and did away with those roles. And since that time, I've been teaching criminal justice. Now, I was teaching online starting in 2014. So it was 2013 actually. So again, I've been teaching online, and I like it. I enjoy it a whole lot. And so I find myself where I am today, teaching criminal justice to students. I have many students. Some of you guys will know students that I've had in the past, and they will tell you that I'm very focused, and my role is to produce educational, professional, and ethical individuals working in the criminal justice field. And so I wanted to share that with you tonight as to why my motto is adversity is a springboard to success. It has launched me. I now pastor a church also as well. I have many of my students who are friends on Facebook. I have written letters of recommendation to help students in their jobs afterwards. Some have seen my Facebook page, which is Richard Wright, J.D., which is for Juris Doctor. And so anyway, I invite you and encourage you to reach out to me if you have any needs, and to understand that I'm a very empathetic professor. I believe in working with you guys and making sure that you're successful. And so with that, I'm going to say good night. Again, the word I'm looking for is open house. So I want to see that word, uh, and I'll know. So I will be archiving this lecture, and I'll see you next week at the same time. Good night. Thank you.